Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Woke military panic as Trump plans to fire diversity-obsessed generals. There's been a lot of drama and discussion and upset over Trump picking his nominees to head government. This is not that. This is a different special story. The Wall Street Journal got word that Trump's team is putting together an executive order to create a special military review board of retired generals who will look at existing generals, and the woke ones will get thrown out. The ones that are not doing their job will get thrown out. The ones that are serving at the pleasure of the president, which is everyone in the government, who are not good for the country in the view of not just Trump, but this special group of military generals, will be thrown out. The idea is to get the military back to focusing on becoming an effective fighting force, a lethal fighting force, and not involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion and special social experiments. From the Wall Street Journal, Trump draft executive order would create board to purge generals. If an executive order is enacted, it could fast-track removal of admirals and generals. It will fast-track the removal of anyone. They already, of course, have their own internal board and their own internal processes at the Pentagon to determine who deserves a promotion and who, if anyone, doesn't deserve to continue as a general. This circumvents all of that because, of course, they have their own little clique, they have their own little group, their own little decision-making, and they don't always even listen to the president. They just kind of do their own thing. This is the issue with the steady state or the deep state or the administrative state. They are all officially, according to the Constitution, under the president. They're all under the executive branch. There is no additional fourth branch of government. They are not independent. They act independent. They've been given some independence, but at some point, when people are given so much independence in an institution that they come up with their own interpretations of the Constitution and they don't want to listen to authority, they want to be their own authority, that's where you get some dangerous and corrupt situations. Trump is looking to clean all of this out. And this is just one way he's doing it. From Politico, Pentagon officials anxious Trump may fire the military's top general. The president-elect has railed against woke generals and others who've pushed for diversity initiatives in the ranks. And this isn't complicated. You can't redefine the purpose of the military just because you have a lot of institutional power. You should be serving the people in the function that they put you in the place to serve in. Not going off in your own direction because it benefits yourself. The Department of Justice has the same problem. It's gotten so huge, it's gotten so much institutional power and influence that they feel because they are in agreement at the higher levels, they know better than the people who elected their own civilian leader of the executive branch, the President of the United States. That really can't continue. The Trump transition team is considering a draft executive order that establishes a warrior board of retired senior military personnel with the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and to recommend removals of any deemed unfit for leadership. If the president approves the order, it could fast-track the removal of generals and admirals found to be lacking in requisite leadership qualities, according to a draft of the order reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. But it could also create a chilling effect on top military officers given the president-elect's past vow to fire woke generals, referring to officers seen as promoting diversity in the ranks at the expense of military readiness, which they won't even deny that they're doing. They'll say, look, we have a quota priority here of a certain skin color or a sexual preference. We need to focus on meeting that number, and then you let standards go, which is really terrible for the military. It's terrible for the people that are in a military situation where you're counting on the person next to you having a certain standard, being able to defend themselves and also protect you if need be. I've never been in the military. Utmost respects for everyone who's ever served in the military. But you can't lower standards to hit a certain social goal. I've heard it explained, well, we want to have the military look like the rest of the country. Are you absolutely ridiculous? Of course that makes no sense. It doesn't matter to us what the military looks like. It matters to us. Can they protect us? Can they protect the country? We need an actual military. We really do. We're not interested in lowering standards to let anyone in just because we have a quota idea of this social program or that social program. It's incredibly dangerous. And it's not just dangerous for the country, it's dangerous for the people that they let in that don't have the proper qualifications. And it's dangerous for the people that have to work with those people. These are actual combat situations we're talking about here. As commander-in-chief, Trump could fire any officer at will, but an outside review board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. But the chilling effect is also good, because immediately you don't even have to pursue people at high levels or low levels if they know that they could be subject to losing their credentials. They are not going to misbehave. They are not going to push an agenda, a social agenda that has nothing to do with military readiness. The idea of a chilling effect is extremely effective, and anyone who's not doing their job should be afraid of losing their job. Anyone who's pushing ideology, abusing their position that way, should be afraid of losing their job, and they will think twice about pushing this nonsense. As commander-in-chief, Trump can fire any officer at will, but an outside board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. The draft order says it aims to establish a review that focuses on leadership capability, strategic readiness, and commitment to military excellence. The draft doesn't specify what officers need to do or present to show if they meet those standards. The draft order originated with one of several outside policy groups collaborating with the transition team and is one of the numerous executive orders under review by Trump's team, according to a transition official. The Warrior Board would be made up of retired generals and non-commissioned officers who will send their recommendations to the president. Those identified for removal would be retired at their current rank within 30 days. Caroline Leavitt, the Trump-Vance transition team spokesperson, declined to comment on this draft executive order, but said, quote, "The American people re-elected President Trump by a resounding margin, giving him a mandate to implement the promises he made on the campaign trail. He will deliver." The establishment of the board would be in line with Trump's calls for purging what he views as failed generals, including those involved with the chaotic 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, according to people familiar with the policy discussions. Trump has said he would ask all generals involved with the withdrawal to resign by noon on Inauguration Day. No one has been fired who was involved in that Afghanistan withdrawal. No small policy people, no big policy people, no generals, no military people. Everyone just continued on, even though the Afghanistan withdrawal, without debate, without discussion, was a complete disaster. That situation has to change. Trump previewed the move during a campaign event in October, telling an audience that he would create a task force to monitor the woke generals and get rid of diversity training in the military. Quote, "They're gone," Trump said of those generals, without naming specific officers. And who cares what their names are? All we care is get back to focusing on the military and stop it with the social agenda. One feared potential target of Trump's threatened purge would be Air Force General C.Q. Brown Jr., the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, according to two defense officials. During the 2020 George Floyd protests, Black Lives Matter protests, Brown spoke about the impact that movement had on him and what it was like to rise through the military ranks as a black fighter pilot. The executive order, which has been reviewed by the president-elect's transition team, may be presented to Trump when he takes office, and its implementation depends on whether he chooses to sign it in its current form, according to a person familiar with its drafting. Trump has also announced his intention to nominate Pete Hegseth, a veteran and Fox News host, to be his next Secretary of Defense. If confirmed by the Senate, Hegseth could be key to implementing the findings of the Warrior Board's review. The Trump team wants to do major reforms at the Defense Department, particularly around the size of the Joint Staff, according to a person with knowledge of the transition. Quote, "It's gotten way too big," this person said. Trump also expects that many of the generals, the 3- and 4-star generals that have been underperforming, will basically be retired. The draft executive order cites as precedent for the move General George C. Marshall's creation of a plucking board in 1940, led by retired general officers, to review the files of senior serving military officers and, quote, remove from line promotion any officer for reasons deemed good and sufficient. The goal of Marshall's board was to make room to promote promising junior officers. But some former officials believe the incoming Trump administration is looking to politicize the military. The military is already politicized. They have their own points of view, they have their own ideology, their own religion, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion religion. They have their own ideas about what they want to do and what's right and what's wrong. When institutions become so one-sided and so powerful and so focused on their own ideology, that alone is corrupt. We want the military to serve the people, not the institution. And our Constitution is more important than their institution. Quote, do they start wearing MAGA hats in formation to signal who's where? Asked one former senior Pentagon official. The potential for this to go wrong is infinite. Well, I don't think they need to wear MAGA hats, but maybe stop pushing ideological agendas and focus on military readiness. That's actually all they're asking you to do. It's not a skin color thing. It's not a gender thing. It's not a sexual preference thing. It's just do the work, please, and stop abusing your positions. The president has the power to fire generals, but rarely does so for political reasons. President Harry Truman fired Army General Douglas MacArthur for publicly challenging the administration's Asia security strategy. President Barack Obama fired Army General Stanley McChrystal as his Afghanistan commander after the military leader's subordinates were quoted as criticizing the administration in a magazine article. I'm not sure where generals would come off criticizing the administration they're working under. You kind of can't really do something like that. You have to wonder, like, well, as a general, isn't there some authority you would answer to? Like, there's the defense secretary, but I mean, really, you're supposed to be in sync with the administration. And if the administration is doing something you don't approve of, you need to resign. U.S. troops take an oath of office to the Constitution and vow not to follow any illegal order, and Congress must approve the promotion of general officers. But establishing a board separate from the current process, which uses serving officers, could undermine the idea that generals refrain from sharing their political views within the Pentagon. It could also potentially prompt officers not to speak out against orders they believe are illegal, says Eric Carpenter, professor of military law at Florida International University of College Law. The military is not supposed to follow illegal orders. If there are illegal orders, what are they? Go ahead and tell us, well, that order is illegal, and here's why we think it's illegal. Okay, publish that. Say that. What I've heard is the military and a lot of the people in establishment, a lot of the people in federal government want to do whatever it is that they think is a great thing to do, because otherwise, well, maybe it's illegal. Well, go ahead, claim what's illegal is illegal and cite why it's illegal. It's not an excuse to not follow orders just because you don't feel like doing something or it conflicts with your woke religion. He continues, quote, this looks like an administration getting ready to purge anyone who will not be a yes man, said Carpenter, a former Army lawyer. If you're looking to fire officers who might say no because of the law or their ethics, you set up a system with completely arbitrary standards so you can fire anyone you want. In the early days of his presidency, Trump openly expressed admiration for military generals and promoted a number of them to his administration. General Jim Mattis served as his first defense secretary. John Kelly was his chief of staff, and Army Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster served as national security advisor. But relations between Trump and the generals quickly soured. By the end of Trump's term, all three of those officers publicly criticized him and described him as a threat to national security because he wouldn't do what they wanted to do. Many of these generals either come from situations or go back to situations after their service to sit on boards of gigantic defense manufacturing companies. There's a lot of money involved. People have financial interests. Those have to be considered. Some of them believe in being more aggressive about war. People have different political ideas. Either serve your president or leave the service. And if you don't do that, you might get removed by this new warrior board. Trump has also had a particularly fraught relationship with General Milley, whom Trump nominated to serve as his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during the final 2 years of his first administration. Milley told journalist Bob Woodward in his latest book that Trump is a total fascist. Trump has called Milley a loser. Trump has called Milley a loser, and he's also called him like a bad general or a fake general. He's also mocked Milley for saying we should leave multiple billions of dollars worth of army equipment and resources in Afghanistan, including planes, literally including planes, because it was cheaper to leave the planes there. There have also been suggestions that when Trump gets back in as president, he will recall Milley to service, which he does have the power to do, and then court-martial him. We don't know if that's going to happen. A court-martial is like a trial, and if there are issues with Milley, if he did do some things that were inappropriate as a general, he can answer for them then. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.